All right. Good afternoon or good night, Monson class. Pardon my appearance. I figured, given this is our last discussion, I'll just show myself in all my brilliance. Anyways, I think it's going to be quite clear where I stand on this poem, and if not, I feel like most everyone sort of agrees in one way or another. So today I'll be going over This Be the Verse and his, honestly, pretty self-explanatory poem. Your parents, ooh, I get to say the F word, your parents fuck you up. They do. I think that's something that most everyone can agree on. And I think not only does it come from personal experience, it's also something that I think has been sort of normalized, if that makes sense. Because normally when we see someone, we see their faults, we sort of attribute a lot of that to their parents. We think of, oh, this person's very impolite, they have no manners. How did their parents raise them? Did they raise them wrong? Did they not teach them manners? So I think in general, a lot of people's faults can be attributed to their parents, or at the very least, people think they could be. And that's pretty much established in the first stanza alone. Philip Larkin says, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They fill you with the faults they had and add some extra just for you. So it's sort of this, I wanted to say perpetuated, but I think I kind of forgot how that word's used. This idea that, kind of sort of the, obviously the faults your parents have, all of the, I guess, negative traits that they were probably raised around. It's sort of this idea that people, it's like this never-ending cycle. How you are raised normally ends up being how you raise your children. And what Philip Larkin is trying to do in this poem is sort of establish this idea that, well, okay, we need to kind of break this cycle, and that's said by his get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself. This sort of idea that you need to break the cycle. You either need to grow out of all these faults that your parents have so graciously left to you, or you need to, sorry, that was my elbow, just not have kids. Because I think, and a lot of people, I think, do not think about this before they have kids. A lot of the times I feel like kids is sort of just saying like, oh, I really want kids. Like, oh my god, it'd be so nice to have kids. Like, I really want a family. But it's also this, this idea that, well, before you have kids, you have to realize this is a very monumental decision. You are bringing life into the world. You are going to be bringing life that will ultimately, and not always, probably bring even more life in the future. That is kind of the goal, is to continue generations. You need to think about, well, the biggest issue, and I had a conversation with a friend about this a while back. Are there any, maybe I shouldn't go into that. You have to think about maybe any genetic traits you don't want to pass down. That sounds like eugenics. I'm not going to say that. Let's not say that. Let's not. You have to think about, well, what is my current state of being? Am I mentally fit to raise a child right now? Can I raise a child healthily? What is my economic state? Can I raise a child who will live a good life, who will live a life that I can provide for, I can fund for, I can give this child a loving home without need to worry? And obviously, it is absolutely not people's fault that they struggle financially, but it's also this idea of, okay, well, can I feed my child? if I were to have one, can I help this child live? So it's not only the idea that parents' mental state, the ideas and thoughts they currently hold, that will affect your children. It's also just a matter of considering if you can raise that child right. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of forget when they have kids. Obviously, I could take this chance to dump every reason I think maybe my parents should have thought before they had children, but my living state isn't as bad as obviously some people have. Some people have abusive parents. Some people have parents that maybe kids were born out of wedlock. Maybe kids were born out of unfortunate circumstances concerning their birth. And it was sort of this matter of, okay, well, now I have to have this kid. But in, I guess, normal circumstances, it's more a matter of people thinking before they have intercourse. And I think that is ultimately what Philip Larkins is trying to say. And sorry, I was reading over the docs earlier for the guidelines or whatever. Obviously, the tone in this poem is pretty humorous. I wouldn't say it's super serious, even though he does use curse words, and those can kind of be seen as serious. But I would say that it's kind of meant to be almost mocking in a sense. Oh, my laptop turned off. And the tone itself, it has this rhythmic sort of like song, just catchy, I think. It is meant to be sort of memorable, but also sort of lighthearted in a way. But also, I mean, because I think the half at one another's throats, obviously the rhyming itself, I think, I would say, establishes it as less serious than I think the topic is, because it is a very serious topic. Again, you're bringing life into the world. You have a lot to consider when it comes to the child's well-being and how you can care for it. But I think his implications for again, the cycle and this sort of generational trauma that's just passed on is, I think, especially shown whenever in the last stanza, there's only 3. So there's not too much to say, unless I were to, again, trauma dump. But he says, man hands on misery to man. It deepens like a coastal shelf. Get out as early as you can and don't have any kids yourself. I already said half of that, but whatever. And I think obviously the misery part is very, very heavy. It's not sort of a lighthearted term to throw around. But also the term coastal shelf. Coastal shelf or continental shelf is sort of like where the continent meets, goes into the shore, and then where it drops off. So I think he's saying a lot about how this cycle goes. It doesn't just continue, it doesn't just go gradually, it kind of, at some point, it just goes downhill. There's kind of no escaping the cycle, because there's only so far you can, go until you just can't kind of get out of that. And it just kind of shows how you were raised, just kind of, it gradually deteriorates depending on how you were raised. Some people respond differently to trauma, to generational trauma. Some people are able to break out of that cycle, but a lot of the times people go back. They regress. They continue that cycle. And so I think it says a lot. I think he's implying basically that having kids or not having kids is a lot better than continuing that cycle, because that's kind of how it works. That's how the relationship between children and their parents works a lot of the times. As a kid, you aren't able to recognize the faults of your parents. Even though I feel like nowadays that's something we can all do. Everyone say thank you, early access to internet. Don't say thank you. I don't know where I'm going. But that's kind of just what I wanted to say. I dragged that out for too long. Sorry. Don't have kids. Or do, if you want. I would prefer you don't. Please don't have kids. Thank you.